Hello. I hope you can see me, you can hear me. That's the webinar 29. My name is Yegor Bugayenko. And the subject now is my annual quality competition, which just we just had the new winners just last week, and I decided to explain you how it works, why it's organized, and the main topic is how you can win. What do you need to do next year in order to win? So first of all, I'll try to answer the question which many people ask me is why I'm doing that. The reason is pretty selfish. I just want my ideas about software development and about object-oriented programming to be more popular. In order for them, well, I want them to be popular because the more popular they are, the more popular I am, and the more money I can get from the market. I will sell my services for higher prices. I'll sell more books. I'll attend more conferences. So I will be able to get more money from the market. And in order for that to happen, I want to give that money back to the market. So I feel that if I motivate people to follow my ideas and to write their software the way I think is the right way to write, they will come back to me to get more ideas. So it's kind of it's a back and forth. So I really see the problems on the market now. I see that the way we develop software is not really perfect in most cases. And the biggest enemy, the biggest problem we have now is that I would call that problem of popularity. So the more popular some projects are, I'm talking mostly about open source stuff, but not only, I'm just in general about software. So the more popular is some software, the more people are using that software, and the more people make decisions about how to write that software. And in most cases, the least clear and the least clean and properly maintained that software becomes. So because the majority in most cases is not right, the majority, a big mass of people cannot make the right decisions in most cases, and that's why I think there are so many popular and big and huge open source products on the market, which we don't like for the low quality they have for many things. And it's difficult to change that if we keep awarding projects for their popularity, which is happening on the market right now. There are so many awards and so many competitions which are saying that this huge Java library is the best open source product. They're not looking inside. They're not looking at how bad is the quality of code inside that library. They just see that there are 1 million downloads of that code package, and that's why it's the most popular piece of code. I have a very different opinion. I think that it's very important to write the clean code, and then when it's clean, when it's properly maintained, when it's designed properly, then it should become popular. So to make that happen, I created that award. This is the third year now, so it's about 2.5 years old. I started to give that money in 2015, now it's 2017. I already donated $10,000 of my own money. So this award is based on my own money, my own decisions, and my own ideas of how the software should be designed. The rules are pretty simple. I'll just go through them. You can find them on the website, but I'll go through them. So the rules are primitive. You can submit any projects you have as long as it's open source. Just submit it. There's a simple form on my blog. You fill the form. You give me the address on GitHub and your email address. That's all you need to give. You have 1 year till the next competition, which will happen in September 2018. So and this is the previous year, so that's the next year. Let's see, here's the next year. Yeah, here. So that's the URL you need. You can submit one project per person. I make the decision of what's going to happen, so it's my decision completely. I decide which project I like more and which I like less. There's no jury here, not a group of people, just myself. The best project gets the money. Results will be announced in October. And there are four things which are important. First of all, it has to be in GitHub. No other platforms are accepted now, and I don't think they will be accepted in the nearest future. The second one is that it has to be big enough, so at least 10,000 lines of code. And I'm using this tool called CLOC, which is open source. So make sure it works. Make sure you get this number or more on your code base. It has to be 1 year old. So if you want to join the competition, you have to start it right now, or hopefully you started already. So if you're going to start it in half a year, I'm not going to accept that because it's going to be too young. So it has to be at least 1 year old, and it has to be object oriented. So I'm not accepting functional programming languages. I'm not accepting procedural programming languages, just object oriented. Mostly because that's the thing I understand, and that's what I think is a dominating paradigm on the market right now. It's pretty easy. The criteria. So what do I pay attention to? First of all, I don't pay attention to the popularity. I don't care what the project, how popular is the project on the market. And some people even create projects for the competition. You can do the same to win the money. So you can just create a GitHub repository, invent some idea. It could be something for yourself. It could be some tool. Doesn't matter. You don't need to have any users. You just create a piece of code and write it the way it should be written. And in 2 years ago, the winner did exactly that. So the project was created especially for the competition. So after he got the money, the project was not developed anymore. It was just made for the competition. That's perfectly all right. I'm not rewarding the code. I'm rewarding the person. So you get the money, not your product, not the code. So that's why I want to donate the money to the person who follows the right ideas of software development. Programming language doesn't matter. This year I got really different languages. Let me show you. There were C#, PHP, Go, TypeScript, C++, C, Java, and Python. So the huge variety of languages. Any language comes in as long as it's somehow object-oriented. And yeah, I don't care about these trends. I don't really care about how much noise is there around that project. So how to win? Let's get to the main subject on how can you win next year? What are the tricks? What's important? There are 7 things which I pay attention for. And this competition is organized the way that I'm collecting projects on my blog and I put them in the list. This year it was 28. The year before it was, if I'm not mistaken, it was 60 something. Let me check. In 2016 it was more. Yeah, it was 60. And in 2015 it was way more. When I just started, it was 158. I don't know why this dynamic is like that. So we're going from 150 then to 60 and then to 30. So we're like, the amount of projects go down, but the quality of projects get higher. So in the first year, we got a lot of garbage coming in. So there were so many projects which were just throwing out because they were not, absolutely not in the state which is acceptable for the competition. The second year it was a little bit better. This year it was really good. So this year we actually, I got the list of projects which only a few of them were just thrown out because they were like low quality on the first sight. In general, they were quite good. So maybe that's what I understand. That's what I think for myself. So maybe people who thought that they just drop their name there and they just get the money because the project is so awesome, they just realized that it's not going to happen because actually the attention is paid to something which is not they pay attention for, and that's why they just decided not to participate anymore. But I hope this year next year I'll have a good enough, a big enough number of projects, at least like 50 or more. That's my hope. What was I saying? So what I'm paying attention for. I wanted to explain how it's organized. So it's not just me. It's not just me who is reviewing this project, because there are many of them. I cannot just go through each of them and review them in details, because they will take like big amount of time. So that's why I have volunteers. I have people who I invite to participate and to help me. I'm not paying them, they're doing it for free, and you can find their names on the blog, on my blog, where the competition page is. There were 6 people this year. You can see their names. So I gave like from 2 to 10 projects to some of them, because they were experts in different languages, and I asked them to pay attention to the things which are important for me, to these criteria, and give me back some feedback. So each of them sent me the plain text files for each project, and I combined that files together and created a summary report in one long text file, which basically one piece of text for each project. You can find that file as well on the blog. That's the URL. So for each project, so this text is coming not from me. I didn't write that text. It's coming from one of the reviewers, one of the volunteers. So they created that text. They wrote something. They checked out the repository. They spent some time, maybe a few minutes, maybe an hour or so, depends on the amount of comments. But they did a really good job. So I'm really thankful for their help, because the previous 2 years I had to pay for that work to someone. So this time I got it for free, which means that people are really interested to help, to help the market. That's a good thing, which I observed this year. I got really volunteers, and people really did that job for free. They volunteered just to be, probably just to see their name here, or maybe just for fun. I don't know what their actual motivation was, but they helped me. So these people review, and I really pay attention to what they say. So I pay attention to this text, and I make my decision based on that text. So I look at that text, I read it through, I understand, I'm trying to understand what's really important here and what I can ignore. And then I create a short list of projects. So I from all the 28, I build a short list of 6 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then I go deeper into each of them, and then I do my own analysis. So I check out the repository, I go to the source code, I look at the file. Sometimes I try to build the project. Sometimes I even try to run some tests. So I'm trying to analyze what's there, and then I give my scores. So for each project, I put the score from 0 to 10. And then I see which one got the higher score, and then I select 1 or 2 as winners. So you can be one of the winners. I just explained you the dynamics, and now let me show you what I pay attention for. So what we pay attention for, that's why I'm saying we, because it's not just me making the decision, it's just a group of people. Well, I make the final decision, of course, but that's a group of people who help me to collect the information, and their opinions really matter. Like I said, because I cannot review all projects in details. So what I ask them to pay attention for, I have a blog post about that. It was written like 2.5 years ago, and it's called 7 Deadly Sins of Software Projects. So it lists 7 things which I think is killing the maintainability in our projects. And I have 2 presentations about that actually, so you can see there were 2 conference talks about that, where I list that thing. So I'm not gonna go through them in details. I'm gonna just show you how people don't do that thing, how people make that mistakes, and that's why they don't get to the winners list. That's why they don't win the money. So of course, first of all is anti-patterns. I'm talking about object-oriented programming, so that's why things which are not object-oriented, they are going to get you out of the list for sure, but we'll get to that later. Of course, that's the most important part. So your projects can be really well maintained, it can be well organized, it will help you to get to the short list, but the most important thing, of course, is to the way you design your classes, your methods, your library, I mean your packages, how you actually make your code object-oriented. But aside from that, there are many smaller mistakes people do which make maintainability lower than it has to be. So let's start from that. First of all, documentation. Well, I'll try to go from the least important to the most important, and then we'll end with the object-oriented problems. So no documentation. It's really difficult to understand, and many reviewers are saying that sometimes. You see they're saying like clean documentation, it's a good sign, because when you review that, you see good documentation. It's a good sign of a project. So if you have the documentation which is good, it immediately catches the attention of the reviewer because it's easier to understand what the project is about. You see good documentation and comments. So in most of the projects which were in the competition, documentation was good. What I mean by the documentation, let's take the winner, for example. That's the winner this year. Here's the project. Yeah, this one is one of the winners. So see, that's the README file. To find out how to use, follow the documentation. So you click the documentation, and you have, it's a properly written documentation with everything you made. Well, I'm not going to go deeper and see how it's actually what's inside, but you get the idea. So it's hello. Yeah, I guess we just got disconnection. So let me continue. So I was saying about the documentation. So it's really an important piece of the product, of your repository. The code is not enough. You need to have you need to explain the functionality from the user perspective. Like me, without looking in your code, I have to be able to understand what it's doing, how to use it. If you don't have that, you're going to lose, that's for sure. The second thing is continuous integration. Apparently, some projects don't have that. I think it's just an industry standard right now, and you must have it. There are so many free continuous integration services where you can host that. You don't need to pay for anything. Just use Travis or Shippable, or there are many of them. I even have an article on the blog which lists everything I know, all the services I know right now. So you need to connect your repository to one of that services and make sure that you have continuous integration. It doesn't really matter for us whether your continuous integration fails all the time or it's stable enough for now, but at least you should have it. Some projects don't have continuous integration, and that is definitely something which we will put you out of the winning list. Some reviewers are saying, if you look at the things, you see people are saying that Travis CI is used. Somewhere else, some reviewers are paying attention to that, but in most of our projects, I think in 99% of them, most of them, continuous integration is used. So you just need to have it. The next one is you need to have some badges in your repository. Just look at this one; it's a winner. So when we look at your repository, we want to see that list of badges in order to understand what are you connected to. So if you're connected to Travis, that's going to be your badge. If you're connected to, I don't know, coverage control, then we will see some badge over here as well. If you're connected to some quality analysis by some other service, then we want to see that badge. Some projects just don't have that. So let me show you this one, for example. It's one of the products on the competition. So you scroll that's all you have. So there is some documentation and not a single badge over here. So how am I supposed to understand whether some continuous integration is connected or not? I can guess probably, I don't know. It's difficult to find any signs of any services connected here. Continuous integration, coverage control, quality control, maybe static analysis, maybe some links to repositories like public repositories where the artifacts are, like Maven Central or I don't know, NPM or something else. So if you don't have badges, it's also really not a good sign for us. It means that you're not really understanding the dynamics of open source. You need to have that things here to show your users, to show us actually to what to look into. That's the next thing, which actually we'll just make you, give you more chances if you connect your stuff to different services. It's not only for fun, even though it may look to you like all these badges are just fancy stuff which people put in their repositories. They actually make some sense in most cases, because they give you a snapshot of what's going on. They give you the highlight of the situation in the project. So it's kind of an immediate overview of what's going on there. I believe it's something. Let's see the winner, another winner this year. I think they had also some badges there. Yeah, you see, so I want to see that stuff. I want to see code coverage. So code coverage is 25%. I see that the build is passing on Travis. This is the AppWare for the Windows platform. You can join the chat. So there is something. You see, it's a badge they attach from the competition. So that's a good thing to have. You can have more of them. Like in my projects, I have usually I put as many as I can. Well, when they make sense. Of course, you don't put too many if they are just for fun and they don't really make sense. But if you can connect some new servers to your repository, some new analyzer which will look at your repository from a different perspective, it's only good for you. Because when you work in the repository, you see only what you see. You see the code, you love that code, but it's not enough. The whole idea of maintainability is how fast I can understand your code. Not how you like your code, not how easy it is for you to work with it, but how difficult it is for me when I'm a stranger. When I just come from nowhere and I look at your project, like, look, I opened this project for the first time, and I don't have like a day to figure out what's going on. I have like half an hour maximum. And I want to look at it and understand what's going on. And from this project, I can understand what's going on faster if I have some badges there. Next point is automation. It's all about automation, I believe. The maintainability is the main focus is automation. You need to automate your releases. You need to automate your static analysis. You need to automate your coverage control and unit testing. So everything has to be automated. If something is done manually, then it's no go. So you need to automate, at least try to do that. At least show us that something is, you're making an attempt to automate. Like, for example, in some cases people some projects don't use unit testing in an automated way. This is that's a definitely no go for the prize. So you need to have all tests together, and they have to be executed in one go, in just one run, and they all have to produce some report and say that whether the entire build is clean or the build is not clean. I think it's just obvious, so it's like the basic thing you can do, with your project. I think if you don't have the build automation, you just don't submit your project to the competition. It's just absolutely out of the market. So you need to have complete automation. But what people don't have in some cases is coverage control, for example, automated. So you need to collect information from your look. I show you. That's a very typical mistake where people don't collect. You see, test coverage is unknown, for example. So maybe even you get that number somehow, or in most cases people just don't collect that. They just don't know what the code coverage is. Some people say this information is not important. I don't believe in that. I believe the number is important. You need to know what the coverage is. But for sure that number is not going to tell you how high is the quality of your code. But this number is an element of the quality. So you need to know that number. Like in 50%, in half of the projects, I see that line. Test coverage is unknown. So test coverage is not, the information about test coverage is not collected. Let's see. Covered with tests. Covered with tests is okay, but I'm not sure whether the coverage is here. Coverage, I mean the number. So you need to be able to see the percentage of code. See, this is good. Code coverage and coverage report. So it means that we know how much of the code is covered there. See, no displayable signs of automated coverage reports. So when I see that, it's an obvious, sign for me that something is not really good in the project. So the maintainers, the authors of the project are not really paying attention to that, or maybe they don't know how to collect the coverage information. See? So the coverage is collected, and then there are two tools are used for that, which is good. See, again, same story. Code coverage is not integrated to build pipeline. So it means that the coverage is somehow collected. We probably get the report, we probably get the number, but we don't see that number. It's no good for maintainability. Why? You can read my blog post, but just make sure you have that. Don't be afraid to show a small number. The winner this year has a quite low coverage. Here it is. The product is, yeah, this one, look. This is the winner this year, and it's 25%. It's really low. I mean, it's not acceptable. I would not be happy if my project would have 25%. It has to be over 60 for sure, over 80 if you can, but 25 meaning that some pieces of code are completely not covered, and it's not bad. It's not good, but at least there is a badge and a number. So make sure you have that. It will take you a few hours to configure for any language you have, but configure it. Use CodeCov. It's an open source. It's a public free service which you can use to display this badge, and it's not so difficult to configure. So that's important. The coverage control. The next thing to automate is the automation of releases. This is what really few projects are actually doing. So what I'm talking about is that when you go to releases tab over here, then you click there, and these are the list of releases. In some projects and some repositories, this list is completely empty. But this year, we had just a few of them like that. If the list is empty, you're not going to win anything. Just don't submit. It's not going to work. So you have to have releases here. You have to release your project incrementally, periodically, and you have to document the releases. So we need to have this release notes here, and you have to have a number of release, the version, and the versioning, has to make some sense. It has to look like that. In most projects, this is the winner, this is another winner. Look, 8 releases, not so many, but still, they are there. So you need to have them. Some projects have more, some projects have less. Yeah, that's absolutely a must. What people are doing that. So developers are releasing their products, but what they're not doing is that they don't automate that process and make this automation publicly available. So in most of them, they have some release script which they run on their laptop in order to make this happen, in order to put this on the, to create this documentation, maybe in order to deploy it to some Maven Central, or to, I don't know, to some repository, some public place where you keep the artifact. But you need to automate it. You need to make it possible for me to do the same release. So look at this. Again, it's the winner. And he's doing, that's the guy who's the owner of this project, and he's doing these releases most probably by this file. Look, release.sh. That's what I figured. It's not documented anywhere. It doesn't say here like, hey, if you want to release, use the release.sh. See, it's never, this information is completely hidden. Only he knows what's going on. Only he knows that in order to release, you need that file. What happens if this guy, abandons this project tomorrow, just, gets hired by Google and forgets about this open source stuff? How we will be able to release it? We'll not be able to figure it out. And look at this file. If you click there, you'll see what's going on. Look at this text. So he's probably running this stuff on his local machine, and it says, if this should be run by me, and even if you skip that check, it's not going to work. So it's a fair notice here. So he's just saying that, look, it's only on my machine. It works on my machine. So it means that there's some configuration, some details which are required, some credentials, some passwords. They somewhere on his machine. It stays somewhere on his laptop. So even if he documents that release script, and I will check out the repository, I will not be able to release it because of this text. I'll not be able to do anything because there are some credentials, some passwords. They stay somewhere. It's no good. What I would recommend, well, I'm using Rulter as a release machine. as a release service, which is my service. Well, I created it 3 years ago and I use it in all my projects. So you can try it as well. If you don't like that, do something else, try something else. But there has to be some automation, some mechanism which is automated, which can be executed with just one click of a button. So I should be able, or somebody else should be able to just say, hey, we're ready to release version number 5. So I click the button, I give the number 5, and the new release goes out. In not zero, but almost zero projects which are coming to the competition, it's done like that. And I think in general, it's a bad situation for the industry. So we are not automating enough. And I don't really understand how people work like that. Like I have, I don't know, maybe 30 open source projects, and some of them I touch like once a year. And when I touch them, I release the new version. I don't want to remember how to release that. I would be like, that would be really a disaster for me if I would have to remember in each particular project how to release it. I would be just doing only these releases and remembering that stuff. That's why I created scripts which are doing everything for me, and all I need to do is just instruct Rulter to run the script, and everything is done automatically. And then I leave the project alone, and then I come back to that project in half a year, and then I do it, again. I release it again. Let me turn that off. Well, people don't do that. I don't know why. Maybe because they just have a few open source projects, just a few GitHub projects, and they just are happy with their local release.sh files, and they remember everything. They know how to release. They're happy to do it manually. I would recommend to be a little bit more lazy. So just be lazy, automate it once, and let it be executed somehow automatically. If you don't have that, your chances if you have the file like that, and the text like that inside, you have really low chances to win. So that's why this project, it actually won this year. It got the prize, but I wasn't really so happy about that, because again, this is like not a good sign for. Maybe it's done somehow else. I don't know. I mean, I didn't get maybe it's done in the Rulter actually, because it uses Rulter, but no, you see, it uses only for merge. So definitely this file is used for releases. So automation of the release is really important. You have to do it. What's next for the stuff which we look for before we look in the object-oriented code? Commits. If you click this link, you will see the commits people are making to the code, and this is what I don't like. So what you see here is not perfect at all. It's really bad, because each commit is not linked to any issues, to any pull requests. It's like something which this guy is doing because he just feels like it. So all the information we have here is just this. Oh no, sorry. Yeah, that's the information. See, I'm wrong. So this is good. So when you see that, that's perfect, because every commit, you see, sorry, if you're this guy, sorry about that. So that's really good. So that's how it should be. So each commit is linked to some issues. So if I want to know why this change happened here, I can click that and I go to the issue and I see what's inside. So there's some explanation, something blah, blah, blah. It's a design enhancement. It happened because of that. That's some information here. I can see something. I can see some reasoning behind this change. But in some projects, they don't have that. I don't know. Let's try this one. It's another winner. So most probably they have that, because we do pay attention to that. Well, you see there are some links here. Boom, 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 boom. Yeah, so they link their commits. They link their commits to the issues. That's a really good practice. It's a really disciplined way of maintaining repository. So the software project is not just the collection of files in Java or Go or Python. It's what do you call it? It's an environment where the code lives. It's an ecosystem. That's the word I was looking for. It's an ecosystem where the code lives, where people live, where people communicate to each other, where people come and go, where discussions happen. So we pay attention to all of it, not just the collection of files you have, and you have to pay attention to that as well. You have to remember that the Java files you have is definitely not enough. It's not everything. It's just I don't know, a quarter of the entire product you have. So the product in general is way more than that. It's your documentation, it's your pull requests, it's your mechanisms of accepting or rejecting pull requests, it's your rules, it's your static analysis rules, all that stuff. So you need to have that. If you don't do that, if you don't have that links, then we will pay attention to that and we will probably cross you out of the competition. So look, sometimes it happens and reviewers were saying that commits are spontaneous. Look, it means that let's take a look. What is this? Like, you see, the reviewer said commits are spontaneous. What exactly was that? Yeah, there you go. You see, like, who the hell knows what this commit is for? Like, what happened? Was there any issue? Was there any pull request? You see, none. So they're just, the author of this repository, this guy, is just making commits, most probably because he's the main contributor, the main developer. So he doesn't care about any discipline, any ecosystem. He's just a cowboy coding. Here's my typo. I want to fix the typo. I fix the typo. That's all I do. But if I join the project tomorrow and I want to join the ecosystem, I open that list of commits and I'll be like, why you were doing all that? I mean, like, why these changes there? Why did changes here? And do I need to, follow some rules? No, there are no rules. They're just a spontaneous commits, just like the reviewer said. It's no good. So if I see this, you're not going to be a winner. So you need discipline. That's what's important. Discipline in commits and discipline in release. And one more thing I forgot to say, static analysis. Static analysis is important, and many people are using static analysis, but most people are using static analysis for as a source of information. So here's my code, let's do the analysis and then get the report from Sonar, for example, from SonarQube or from Codacy. It's a public service which also give you some rating, some rank. They will give you, okay, your project is A or your project is B, and here's the list of issues you have with the formatting of your code, you have with this and that. That's good. I mean, it's something, but this is not really static analysis. You need to configure your static analysis the way that it actually breaks your build. So you need to be, look, there's no static analysis. It's absolutely wrong. You see no displayable signs of static analysis. It's really a typical problem. People just don't do that. No information about that. Let me look. No information on static analysis. Yeah, it's something else. See, code style is stated in documentation, so the documentation probably says that we're going to use this PEP 8, but it's not enforced. So this is the key word, enforced. So you have to enforce your static analysis. You have to make sure that if I violate the way the code should be formatted, then the build will break, and then everything else will break. Everything else will break as well, like continuous integration, release pipeline, everything. So I need to format my code the way repository wants. So we need to enforce static analysis. If you don't do that, again, you're most probably not going to win. So you need to integrate static analysis like CheckStyle, this PEP 8, I don't know, Rubacop. In any different language, you have specific tool for that analysis. In some languages they're very powerful, like in Java. In some languages they're just starting to grow because the languages are not so popular. But still, use that tool, integrate it into your build cycle, into your build automation script, and make sure that the build fails if the static analysis is the formatting of the code is broken. And static analysis is not just the formatting. If you look at the find bugs, it's more about the quality of code and the mistakes which people typically make, and which can be caught without actually running the code. So that's why it's called static analysis. We don't run the code, we don't test the code, we don't execute anything. We just look at the code and say that if you are using the variable before it was assigned, then that's a more or less obvious indicator of a mistake. So if you see what I'm talking about. it's almost everywhere. So that's a, static class, it's something else. You see, static analysis check with check style. So that's the winner. So that's why that's basically why the repository is the winner. So it's not so difficult as well. So integrated. Initially, when you integrate it into your build cycle, initially it will be a problem because you will get many complaints. You will get many violations of your static rules, and you will not be able to build anything. And you will have to spend a day or an hour or a week to fix all the mistakes you have. But trust me, you will have a huge amount of, troubles will be removed in the future if your code follows static analysis rules, and the rules must be as strict as you can. So don't make them loose, but make them as strict as you can. But have them. Most repositories just don't have anything. That's a definitely a mistake. Okay, now let's go to the object-oriented stuff. So you understand now that automation is the key. Read this article again. I basically covered everything. Test coverage, volunteer static analysis, this is releases, undocumented interfaces, everything. I showed you by example what matters. And now what we pay attention to in the code, considering how object-oriented it is. I have my own understanding of object orientation. You probably know that. And I'm trying to enforce, again, it's a good word here, I'm trying to enforce that understanding for the participants of the competition. So there are a few things which we pay attention for, and if you have them in your code, then most likely you will not win. And I can list them. It's not a rocket science. First of all, it's null references. If you have nulls in your code, and many of them, then that tells me that you're doing something wrong. You don't understand object-oriented programming. So look at your code, don't use nulls, and you can win the money. Second, getters and setters. Again, I have an article on the blog explaining why it's wrong. I said it in the book, and there are so many people on the internet which are saying the same. Setters and getters, just don't use them. It doesn't matter what language you're using. Ruby, Java, Python, C#, it doesn't matter. Getters and setters is just a pure evil. If you have them, it means that you're writing something else, not object-oriented code. If we find them, look, many people actually find them and they say so here. They say 22 times. You see this, the word setter is mentioned, or 33, I don't know what's the difference. So setters and getters, setters. You see, getters and setters, again. So in many projects, see, people are actually using getters and setters, and we pay attention to that. And if we see that, it's something which this is the winner, and there are some getters and setters. It's something which people look like the people cannot really get rid of, but try to. That's why this year these winners are not really I'm not really happy with them, because they are actually using getters and setters, and they're using some stuff which is not supposed to be in object-oriented code. Number 3, static methods. Static methods or utility classes. It's also a lot of this utility things, utility classes. Utility classes. If you have utility classes, you know what it is, then it's not an object-oriented code actually. If you have some, you know what utility class is. If I find that utility classes, your chances to win are low. If you have them in your code, you still have time the whole year to get rid of them. How to get rid of them? Read my blog, I suggested it many times. Just turn your methods into objects, into classes. Sometimes you may lose the performance, but in most cases the performance will not matter. So it's still going to be a workable application, but it will look object-oriented. Just get rid of utility classes. The next point, global variables and global methods, global functions. In Java, they don't exist, even though you can make singletons. So if in Java you have singleton, it's also an anti-pattern, and it's something which will decrease your chances to win. In many languages, in PHP, for example, or in JavaScript, you may have global variables, so global functions, global methods, which stay outside of any classes, just global functions. Of course, it's procedural programming, and you're not going to win if you have that. Turn them into classes, turn them into objects. Do the normal object-oriented programming. Next one, which we pay a lot of attention to, is long methods and long files. If you have files if you have a Java class with 2,000 lines of code, most likely you're not going to win. 2,000 lines, it's too much. So check your files, see how big they are. If they're over 500, it's already too much. So 500 lines is a limit for a properly designed Java class, excluding documentation. Sometimes you need to have more if you have if you have a lot of huge blocks of documentations which then convert it into the API documentation. In this case, it's okay. But the code itself must not take longer than, absolutely no longer than 500 lines. In some projects we have, in some projects which were submitted, we have way more. See, some classes are too long and have lots of methods. Class is quite long. You see, 400 lines is already quite long. I'm talking about 500. So 400 lines is already too long because it's difficult to read. It's something which you need to. Class is quite long. It's 700 lines of code. Class is long. It's 1,200 lines of code. You see, usually files are too long, about 300 on average. You see? So make your classes short, because when they're long, it means that you cannot really break down concepts into smaller concepts. So it's a sign for us that you don't understand how to design object-oriented programming, how to design object-oriented software, how to design classes, how to make sure they're small, cohesive, and how their internals actually can stay together without becoming too large. The next one is classes which end with the ER. So if you say they're like managers, controllers, sorters, printers, writers, readers, all that stuff. So if the name of the class ends with ER, that something is wrong. Again, I have an article on the blog explaining that. I said it in the book, in Elegant Objects book. We do pay attention to that. I pay attention to that. If you look at my summary review, which I did with the analysis, look, I pay attention to that. So even though this is the winner, I said we have estimator, classifier, cluster, optimizer. All of these classes are not really classes. They are like more or less utility things and tools, but they're not really objects. Again here, command manager, spell check worker, and all that stuff. Again, reader, sanitizer, emitter. It's something you should not do. So if you see a class in your project which ends with ER, it's no good. And two things more which we pay attention to, but that's less important, is mutability. I believe that object-oriented code should be immutable. All classes should be immutable, but that's a gray area, and I am not really strict about that. So I would love to see immutable code. I would love to see, if I see the entire project which contains only immutable classes, then you will be in the short list for sure, and I will really want to give you the prize. I haven't seen that since the first competition. Like I'm saying, on the first year, there was a really good project with everything immutable, everything done according to the rules, and the guy just got the money. The next 2 years, the situation was worse, and maybe because projects were not created specifically for the competition, and that's why they had not such a bright code. But if you can do it, if you can write something which will be 10,000 lines of code and 1 year old, and everything will be immutable, then I will really pay attention to your project. And then the last thing is typecasting. This instance of operator or type of, where we in runtime we check the type of an object, and according to the type of an object we do something. I believe it's a bad practice. It's an anti-pattern, and we shouldn't do that. So if you use it a lot, then it's gonna be something I will see. Like in this project, the reviewer said lots of instance of reasoning searched by instance of repository. So there were so many of it that the reviewer actually said that, look, there are so many, so probably there's something wrong, something's going on. Here as well, You see again, instance of, again, instance of. So it's something you should try to avoid. So I'm finishing. Pay attention to automation, pay attention to the discipline, create a proper ecosystem, create a nice environment for people who can join the project and feel disciplined there. Automate as much as you can, put as many badges as you can, connect to as many analyzers as you can, make it, pay attention to quality, not only to the functionality you write. And then you have a chance to get the money next year. And let me see, there's probably could be some questions there. Okay, there's so many questions. So that's what I wanted to say and summarize about this competition. I already got 7 projects, even though it's just 1 week since I announced the winners of this year. So I hope we'll see more projects. I'm really interested to see them. I'm really interested to see how we are improving. I think over 2 years we made some progress, and you see the projects which are coming in, they deserve some attention, and it was really, I was pleased to see that people are paying attention to quality and to the proper object-oriented design. I don't know, I'm not sure that it's because of the competition, it's because of me. I think that it's just a combination of factors, and I'm just one of the factors. So I'm just a little bit trying to improve the situation on the market, and my small donation, my small contribution seems to be helping. If the picture I see, if the projects I see are getting better comparing to previous years. That's what I wanted to say. I probably have to finish. So submit your project, don't be shy, don't worry, at least you will get some feedback from us. At least you will get some information about what can be improved. Maybe you will win the money, but at least you will get the feedback. That's it. Thank you very much. Thanks for listening. See you next month. As usually, the first Wednesday of the month, 11 a.m. Pacific time. Bye-bye.